the United States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Thank you.
Make sure you all turn our mics on, please.
We did have an executive session this evening to discuss personnel matters. At this time, Tara, do you want to do the roll call?
Mrs. Fish,
Here.
Dr. Katachu, Mr. Gordon, Dr. Gursky, Mr. Kirsch,
Here.
Mr. Reichert, Dr. Yuasa,
Here.
Mr. Huron,
Here.
Mrs. Edmeades.
Here. At this time, we will elect a temporary president. Do I have any?
What did he say?
A temporary president. Do I have a nominations?
I nominate Chris Huron.
I second.
There's no need for a second.
I take it back.
Any others? We can go ahead and vote.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Mr. Gordon,
Yes.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert, Dr. Yuasa,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Abstain.
Mrs. Edmeades.
Yes.
I get that C too? Comes with the gavel. Don't forget to switch your name tags. Chris, switch your name tags. Names.
No.
Oh.
Tablet then too, please. Hallelujah. That's what I have to say. No, that's fine. I'd like to throw it.
All right, so. Okay. Okay, next point of business tonight is the election of board president. So the recommendation action for the board is to take action to elect the president of the board for this coming year, effective today, December 2nd, 2020. The formality to that process includes the board president must be elected by the newly constituted board, which is us all here. And right now, we'll open up the floor for president nominations for the president, excuse me. No seconds are necessary, and we'll proceed with the process of nominations.
I would like to nominate Chris Huron.
Any other nominations? Okay. Then there's next step would be to for a motion to close the nominations for president.
I
We have
make
a
the
motion? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. So now we move to the next order of business. I guess as a formalities of the vote. So do we? I guess we do that with this. Oh, that's me.
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Mr. Gordon,
Yes.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert, Dr. Yuasa,
Yes.
Mrs. Edmeades,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Therefore, motion carries. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Bonnie. Bonnie has just done, just had just a challenging year with everything that was put forth in front of this board. A lot of it's obvious, the challenges of our world as a whole. Certainly there were others for this particular board. A lot of us were new. She shared in that experience to help us through a lot of things. And also, I commend you, Bonnie, for your perseverance, because I know you've had some health challenges along the way. So thank you for your year of service. Not knowing how tonight was going to turn out, I had a chance to reflect a little bit about this last year. Some of the things that really shine through to me are obvious ones, but one of the things that I spent some time thinking about through the holidays when I was surrounded by my immediate family and all is where my starting point was on this opportunity to be part of this board. I am truly grateful and humbled that everybody just put their faith in me to take what we started as a group under Bonnie's leadership and now carry it to the next year. One other thing that thought I'd like to share that crossed my mind during my self-reflection in this process was I look back on the starting point when I considered and I was approached to even think about putting myself in this environment. And one of the things that shone through at that time was I kept getting asked, what's your agenda? It seemed like one of those things when I was out and about in the community, it was the summertime, you're out kind of social around sports fields, all those things. Everybody kept saying, what's your agenda? And I honestly didn't have one. My agenda was to try to give back. My agenda with sports and coaching is a passion I've had for many years, is do it for the reasons that matter most, and that's our kids. And so when I was approached to do, to consider school board, that's where I found myself. My agenda was to do what I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know what it was. I had no real perceived notions. There was the prior boards and all those things, which are right now, I don't want to dwell on that. But one of the other things that I recall was when I crossed paths and folks knew I was running or was in the process of going through the formalities of that, people would look at me and they'd be like, some friends and acquaintances, some of those, and they would say, why do you want to do that? Why? You're going to be one of them. And that bothered me. It bothered me from the context of, the school board is, and we all have important roles. Everybody in this room, everybody, extended teams and staffs. But that particular feature of the persona in the community really bugged me. Why? We're not the evil empire. We don't get paid to do this. We do it because we all have different views of care. And I kind of just made that a little bit of a self-quest, maybe is the right words right now. I'm just kind of ad-libbing as I'm speaking from my heart right now. I want to change that. I want to change that for those out there that throw us all into one big bucket, that evil empire school board, them. And it started in the beginning. I'm not a big social media person. I spend zero time on Facebook, but some of that trickles in through my wife and others. And you just see some of this poison stuff, I'll call it. And I guess what I find myself thinking in this humble moment, I'd like to see us as a community move past the fundamentals that we have this obligation to do and move the school board and this district and all these wonderful people here forward. But my personal thing in all this, and I'll end it real quick. My personal thing in all this, let's all find a way to make a positive difference. Let's find some way in our individual world. Some of it could be at a higher level. Some of it could be a conversation on the side of a ball field. Some of it could be having a cup of coffee somewhere. Let's start to instill some positive difference. Let's start to critique in our own worlds people that I put a label on. I've heard it. It's a borrowed label of that keyboard confidence, where people are putting out this poison into our communities, where they feel empowered to critique, but yet I don't see them here. I don't see them participating. So I ask from maybe a little bit of a personal selfish view. I'm not selfish at heart, but I'm building this as I'm rolling here. let's find ways individually to make a positive influence, whether it's talking to someone we know and say, stop that. Or maybe one other thing that pops in my mind. I grew up in an environment. My mom, love her to death. She's passed. She had one thing that rings true to my heart right now. She told me, Christopher, and that's usually when I was in trouble, but sometimes not. But she would say, Christopher, if you have nothing good to say, don't say it. And could you imagine what our community would be like, where we don't have these anonymous people throwing poison, critiquing, but yet they're not here to make a positive change. So maybe my message tonight, and this is an ad lib, but it is from my heart, where we can, let's make a difference. Let's self-police some of that. Let's not just jump on the bandwagon. If you want to make a difference, and we are truly founded in the right reasons, there's vehicles to do it. And I'd ask everybody to take a look at that. And I guess that's enough. So thank you for listening to me. Again, thank you, fellow school board members, for entrusting me to take this on, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, so I have more to do. Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on, real quick. Just had to get that out of my system. It's like that the nervous energy before the toss ball in a basketball game.
All right. we need
All
a
right, I'm
vice
better now.
president.
All right, you ready?
We need a vice president.
All right, here we go. Woo! All right. So, thank you, everybody. So now we move forward with the next part of our reorganization process. It's the recommended action now is for the board to take action to elect vice president for this upcoming school year that starts today, December 2nd. And the board vice president must be elected by this board. So right now, I'd like to open up the floor for nominations for said position of vice president. Is there any nominations?
I nominate Caston Kirsch.
Second.
No need for a second.
Okay, is there any other, I guess we've got a field. Is there any other nominations that anybody has? Anybody on the team? No? Okay. So with that said,
I make a motion to close the nominations.
oh, thank you, Bonnie. Do I have a
Second.
second? Okay, thank you,
Second.
Christina. Okay. Therefore, motion carried. Welcome aboard.
Wait,
Now we gotta vote.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'll get this figured out eventually.
Mr. Gordon,
I'm gonna be busy.
I'm a rookie.
Mr. Gordon,
Sure, yes.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Is that me?
yes.
Abstain.
Mr. Reichert, Dr. Uwasa,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mrs. Edmeades,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Katachu.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Yep,
Oh, I'm sorry. Carrie?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we move on to the next order of business tonight is meeting dates and locations. Our recommended action on this item is for the board to take action to approve the Danville School Board meetings for the calendar year of 2021. I have a motion to approve.
I just want to
Oh.
clarify that you
Yep.
have that in your file. It is the school board meeting where there are 2 meetings a month. Generally speaking, the second and fourth meeting of each month. The first meeting of the month being a working session and the second meeting being a voting session.
Thank you, Ricky. Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the calendar for 2021 as presented?
I make that motion.
Thank you,
I second
Christina. Thank you, Dr. Johannes. That voice vote?
Oh, well,
Oh, roll call. All right, roll call, please.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert, Dr. Uwasa,
Yes.
Mrs. Edmeades,
No.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Mr. Gordon,
No.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next order of business is the committees and committees for the board members. The board will take action to approve board and committee members for the calendar year of 2021.
What we have done is to put out a survey to each of the board members to see where they are interested in participating. We are limiting the actual number to 3 people per board committee, and that allows then for other members to come as they choose across the different committees. The first committee, Finance, Budget, and Insurance, is run by our business manager, Bobby Ely. The chairperson who has agreed is Kasten Kirsch, and members Christina Fish and Johannes Getchichu. Curriculum Committee, which would be run by our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Technology, John Bickhart. We do not have anyone choosing to be a chairperson at this time. The 2 people who have offered to be members are Kasten Kirsch and Jen Gursky. Next is the Building and Grounds Committee, and that's directed by our Building and Grounds Director, Ken Berkish. We do not have a chairperson at this time, but the 2 members are Chris Huron and Bonnie Edmeades. Next, we have Athletics and Activities Committee, and we actually have 4 individuals who are interested in this committee. It needs to be looked at as 3, so we can have a further discussion regarding that. It is run by our Director of Student Services and Activities, Chris Johns. Kyle Gordon has offered to be chairperson again. Thank you. And Kasten Kirsch, Bonnie Edmeades, and Jen Gursky have all offered to participate in that particular committee. So we can need to look at that. Policy and Legislative would be run by me, and the members are Johannes Getchichu and Corda Uasa. Negotiations and Personnel, as needed. It's not something that would be happening on a regular basis. Are the superintendent, I would be running that meeting, that particular group. The chairperson, Christina Fish and Chris Huron, have both offered to do that. And additionally, Christina, as also as a member. And then long range planning is run between myself and Mr. Burkish, and the Building and Grounds Committee are the committee that are involved with the long range planning, and then that comes to the committee of a whole for the whole boards for consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Boyle. Yes,
But she-
Johannes.
I volunteer for the curriculum committee. I'm not sure if I did that. I think I did.
Okay,
Which one?
I missed that one, so that's 3rd. Do you want to be chairperson?
He shrugged his shoulders.
Yes, he
That
does.
means yes.
And if you need a 3rd for policy, I'd be willing to do policies.
Thanks, Christina. I thought you might have done that for me.
And did you say Johannes was the chair for policy?
We didn't have a chair.
Okay.
I said that.
That's for
Oh,
curriculum.
curriculum. Okay.
Christine, you want to be chair? Well, we can just do it as a
No.
group too. It doesn't have to have a
We
chair.
could fit that.
That one's a little different. All right, the only other situation is with athletics, we have 4 members at this time.
Didn't we have 4 last year?
Yes.
Right, but the recommendation from PSBA is to have 3 members on a permanent committee, but at this point, we have 4.
I think I'd be. I was saying, is it to avoid having a quorum by any chance?
Yes, that's what it's for. If the president would want to come, because the president can come to any committee, and it is a public committee too as well. Then what it does is then it puts us into a 5 of a quorum. So that's why they recommend only 3 per members per committee.
Well, I would like to move ahead before, and if our newly elected president would like to attend, one of us can certainly not attend in honor of him. If we can do that, I don't know if that's allowed, but we had last year. I thought we worked really well together, and I'd like to see that continue.
Okay, that needs a vote, and you guys can vote on it.
Okay, well, Chris, if you want to certainly attend any
No,
meeting.
that's all
You're
right. I
more
mean,
than welcome.
I could be a filler, and you guys do a fine job and we report out monthly. And if there's anything of urgency, we vet that out through
Yeah.
other avenues. So I'm okay with that. All right. So do we need to?
Chris, would you want to have Christina be the negotiations and personnel chairperson since you're the president?
Yes, I would.
Okay, there you go, Christina.
Oh, you're getting back at me.
We had a good time until 11 o'clock at night. If you didn't, so didn't we?
All right.
All kidding
Hopefully we
aside,
don't have to
that's-
convene that very often. All right, now, any questions about all that? Did I miss
How about-
anybody?
How about those VOTEC, CSIU and all those?
That's different than
That's
this.
Those
Yeah,
are
that's
clean.
board representatives. All right.
And I
I've left-
apologize. Athletics was Kyle, Jen, Bonnie, and Cast. Oh, sorry, I missed the fourth.
Was there a safety or a wellness committee? For some reason, I'm thinking maybe in the.
We have a
past-
safety committee, but that's not a board committee, that's a district committee, and Daryl does sit on that for us. I did talk to him about that. He does want to continue with that. And we also have a wellness committee. Right now, it hasn't been convening very much, but Chris has always helped us with that one.
Thank
But again, they're district.
And
committees, not
Daryl
board
sits on
committees.
Head Start, correct?
Yes, Daryl's also Head Start.
And do we need to take action as a board for the 4 committee members on the athletic committee? or
No,
okay with
once
that?
we vote for this,
Okay,
that's it.
good.
Okay, so thank you.
So do we need a third person for buildings and grounds, or are we okay?
We don't have to have 3. That's the recommendation.
Okay.
So.
We have 3, right?
Buildings and
Yeah.
grounds, there's no chairperson.
You're on an ed meets.
Oh, I got the. Yeah, this is building. Oh, okay. Okay, so now we make a motion to approve the committee and board member assignments.
A motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, and we do roll call, I think, Terry? Please.
Mr. Reichard. Dr. Uasa.
Yes.
Mrs. Edmeades.
Yes.
Mrs. Fish.
Yes.
Dr. Katachu.
Yes.
Mr. Gordon.
Yes.
Dr. Gursky.
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so now we'll make do I have a motion to adjourn the reorganization component of tonight's meetings?
Second.
That was Daryl and Christina. All in favor, voice vote, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Now we're going
Okay,
He did.
that's what we just did.
Yeah.
Right.
to.
I make a-
Oh, they're going
Okay.
to executive session.
Okay, and then we do need to step back into an executive session to finish a personnel discussion that we didn't have time for this meeting. So we have a motion to return to exec meeting.
I make that motion.
Somebody
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries.
All right, well, wait, we have to do. Okay, all right.
Okay. All right, meeting call to order, please. Okay, we just conducted an executive session where we had some discussions with some personnel issues from 7:40. Excuse me. There were personnel and as well as safety concerns in our executive session just now from 7:45 to approximately 8:13 today. With that, the next order of business is a roll call, please. Terry?
Mrs. Fish. Dr. Gatachu.
Here.
Mr. Gordon. Dr. Gursky.
Here.
Mr. Kirsch.
Here.
Mr. Reichard. Dr. Uasa.
Here.
Mrs. Edmeades. Mr. Huron.
Here. Thank you, Terry. Next order of business is our meeting minutes from November 18th. Do I have a motion to approve said meeting minutes?
I make that motion.
Okay, do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
New voice.
Voice vote.
Voice.
Vote. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we move on to board administrative announcements. And I'll go ahead and speak to the Columbia Vote Tech. There's nothing specific there other than they have equal challenges that every school district is, which is managing the safety and health plan. And they have had one case here recently that they're also managing to that plan. CSIU, Johannes, Dr.
We don't have any meetings since last month, and I did not attend that, but it's nothing substantial based on the message, the correspondence I got.
Okay, thank you. And then for project committee, Ken, did you want to share with us a little bit there, please? Thank you.
Use the microphone.
We advertised about, is it on?
Yeah.
We advertised starting last Friday, November 20th, to begin the process for the feasibility study. And the first thing I want to point out, the feasibility study isn't necessarily to start a construction project, but it's to develop a master plan that the school board can carry forward, something that's going to be valid for years to come with what we want to do. We're looking at some large expenditures for like Liberty Valley with a roof here in 2022. Still have the parking lot situation down at the middle school with all the paving is deteriorating. And the only way that we're going to be able to tackle that is if we put a master plan together so we can look at it strategically in the future as far as what we want to upgrade, what we don't want to upgrade. We had a meeting last Tuesday with the long-term planning group just to kind of get on board with what we can expect from a feasibility study, what we're after, and how we're going to proceed. Today, we ended that meeting was open to the public last week. Today, we had a meeting. It was a pre-proposal meeting since we had it advertised, and we had received we've received 23 outside platforms for people that were involved. Now, some of those are going to be architectural firms with more than one person sitting in on it. So our next, which is a good sign, if we have 23 people, we should have a pretty good response to the proposal. So next Friday, we're going to be doing building tours with the architectural groups when they show up. Then we'll have the RFP response is going to be due Monday, January the 4th at the administrative office. At that time, the Building and Grounds and Long-Term Planning Committee will sit down and interview probably 4 to 6 candidates, architectural firms, to move forward with the feasibility study. Narrow it down to one that they'll bring in front of the school board January 20th. So at that time, they'll have narrowed it down to one, and they will also be able to present that evening for the 20th. So that's kind of the schedule that we're moving on. We got the approval to move ahead this past June, but it's taking this long with COVID and everything else to get this thing in order. So it'll happen, in the next month fairly quickly. That's kind of where we're at. And we don't have to buy into anything. We'll look at the proposals and the cost of doing it and move forward from there. But we have to come together on a master plan. I think the school district's gone a long time with no vision as far as what they want to do. And we have 2 buildings in particular with the middle school in Liberty Valley that are aging quickly. And we have to have a plan, and whether it's 2 years or 20 years down the road, we have to have a plan as far as how we're going to handle the deterioration or renovations of these buildings.
I appreciate that.
Can
That's very, very, I like the fact that we are taking a hard look and doing it in a fashion that we're being proactive. And I like your approach to how you're conducting that and getting our head around some details to start to shape out direction. And that's a great starting point. So I appreciate what you're doing there. So thank you.
Mr. Burkish, I just wanted to clarify because now we're on a 2-meeting a month session. Would that be presented to us at the 13th so we can hear it, or is it during the voting meeting on the 27th. I heard you say the 20th, and I just want to be, I know we're
20th is
wearing,
the meeting.
wearing masks, and I just want
Oh,
to be
that's okay.
sure.
Well, I have it for a school board meeting for Wednesday, January 20th. I haven't seen the new
Yeah,
dates.
no. We would then have a vote on the 23rd.
If that's the next date.
Now,
27th.
that doesn't mean on, or what is
27th.
27th. That doesn't mean that on the 13th, he won't present the information.
So
Because
we-
what our
we
plan
might
is
have-
that it's a working session. So the information to the best of our ability will be presented then. And then you'll have that to digest so that the next meeting we can vote.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
The other thing I want to say in conjunction with what Mr. Burkich said is the administrative team has been developing a 2030 plan, which is the year 2030, a 10-year plan. Nothing's been done that I can see for several years. So we have come together. A big part of it is this feasibility study because how our buildings are configured and what we do with it has an impact on how we provide education, curriculum, grouping, and those kind of things, including staffing for that matter.
I think it's great. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Okay, next order of business is our enrollment report.
Yes, our enrollment at this time is in the buildings, 2,249 students. That includes our preschool classrooms of Head Start and pre-K counts of 82 students, which is a nice, solid group of young people that we can help get ready for school. Additionally, we have approximately 180 students in e-learning classrooms, and again, about 125 in homeschooling. And I'm not sure the number of bridge anymore. That seems to go up and down. So approximately, what was it, about 100 in bridge? Yeah. Okay. Additionally, I want to let you know that in examining things, talking to coaches today, Mr. Johns and I came together and made the decision that elementary basketball and wrestling programs will be postponed until January. We will re-examine things as we go, but we have found that it is complicated to have them in the building in such large groups because there's several students who want to participate in that. And again, they're younger children, so they have a lot less mindset of social distancing and masks. And the last piece on my superintendent's report has to do with our virtual learning. And I have Dr. Bickhart here to provide a short presentation. They had done a student survey of middle and high school students, asking them their reaction to virtual learning. And this is very important because once this is presented, I think the board would like to discuss what we have to do moving forward.
Value. By flicking switches.
All right, good evening, everybody. There are two aspects to this presentation. The first one I'm just going to go over and not present. And the whole purpose of what we did, and this is a small bit of our work with teachers on Monday regarding virtual learning. So we had an Act 80 day. We focused in with teachers on where we are as a district when it comes to virtual learning, the progress we made, how things are going. The first part that we talked about with teachers was the actual mechanism they're using to teach with, which is Google Meet, and our system, our open broadcasting system that we presented before, which is called OBS. So we went back over all the components of the effective ways to do that. We got feedback from kids. What do videos look like? How are things coming across when it comes to the digital content when they're using a document camera? So we got some quotes from them, learning. And what we did was we went around and we looked at best practices from other teachers and things that we could share with teachers on how to get better in regards to teaching. Clicking here, moving this here so that kids can see it better when it's on the screen. So that was an initial piece that we really focused in on the technical side of working with our staff on how to do that a little bit better. Here's what's really important is Google Classroom is the venue that students are getting their information from. It is where a child goes to gain access to content in across the district. Doesn't matter if you're in kindergarten or if you're in 12th grade. But here's the reality. A student walks in and this is their world. They sit down and they go, okay, these are all my classes. Now, it's a necessary reality of virtual learning. It's actually a reality probably we'll keep in regular learning down the road because it's a way to organize tasks and information for kids and you know, in general, to keep them organized. However, in getting to this, the point we're at now, it's taken a lot of work from both our teachers and our students. So you've got to learn as you go. And here's what we have learned is, and when I asked the teachers this, they were able to identify it immediately. If I click on any one of those, it may not look the same. It may have a different look. And to a kid, that can be difficult. So what we began to talk about is how do we organize our content to help kids when they want to go in and know there's content and how it's organized. So they like dates, probably not much different than us. And you might ask, well, how else could it look? You know, when teachers are planning, they're thinking topics, units, lessons. So they're, okay, my videos are here, my bell ringer might be here, my sequence of activities here. So a student may have to scroll way down to find everything. What we began to talk about is a very simple solution to meet the needs of kids is they want organization. So these are some quotes they had. You can just keep going through them, Mrs. Willoughby. Just talks about finding things when dates are there and it's organized that way, it's a lot more effective. So we'll continue on. This is what it would look like. So what you can see here is the date's there. So a student knows that's where I'm at. Today is, you know, if it was November 20th, I know where to go. I know, you can see different assigned dates here. They know where things are based on that information. What we believe is not the teachers were not trying to provide information in a consistent way or a way for students. It was just they were doing it based on their organization. What we're trying to do is listen to the kids and make sure we know what are they thinking is the best way to organize content. Okay, when you're in Google Classroom, if you go to the next slide, there's what's called stream and classwork. Think of a stream as any kind of social media where it's just tons of information. So things get posted, anything that gets put into a Google Classroom can follow into a stream. So there are ways of organizing that so kids know that the stream needs to simply be, where do I go to get on my Google Meet and where do I go to get key information for the day? Not a lot of other information. But unfortunately, the way it's set up, if you don't turn certain things off, it can be overloading to a child. So the next slide shows that. So here you see stream, classwork, people. This is one that's very organized. It's simple comments from the teacher. But any assignment that gets turned in by kids will pop up there if you don't turn that off. So it can become very overwhelming for a child to try and find what information is important. So again, simple step, listening to the kids, use the stream only for information. Big piece that you may be hearing a discussion about is simultaneous work. In the reality of virtual education, yes, we want to be virtual, but we also know there's a need, especially at the elementary level, for paper pencil activities. We found some great success K to 5, even into the secondary level, making sure students have some access to paper pencil activities. So if the teaching is virtual, meaning it's synchronous, teacher is teaching me, I have some of the materials I need already to do that. Now that's not everywhere. We have tools that allow for simultaneous work, but what we also know is it's one of the more difficult things for a child to try and listen to the teacher and work at the same time. So how do we work through that? Well, we're talking to the teachers about how do you front load content? How do you use videos? How do you use your Google Meet to create what are now, we're learning our breakout rooms to do small group work. So we're talking about how do we restructure our learning in kindergarten through 12th grade to meet those needs of students. So teaching is happening, but when work is happening at the same time, we're balancing that strain, not only on the computer, but on the student's brain. Comes back to, we talk about dates, students love agendas. So probably the number one thing that we really got to the teachers with and reminding them from the students is, and I think it's probably relevant to all of us when we think about it. They want to know This is the date. This is what I do. Here's when it's due. Okay. Here is the agenda for the day. Here are the activities. That gives them that ability to feel control of the situation. And what our goal is through these practices, if we can get this streamline where teachers are going, okay, the more consistent we are, the better it is for kids to churn in work. So, again, students, teachers, nobody's doing anything wrong in this situation. It's just we're trying to do our best to learn what the best practices are, not only from what other teachers are saying, but what the kids are saying, to make sure we're doing our best to organize content and information for kids in the most productive way. So one side thing I will add to all of this is when we began the school year with our staff, we told them that Google Classroom and Google Sites are going to be two things we focus a lot on. And the way we described that was Google Classroom is your files, your work. It is the content that needs to be there. Google Site becomes, in a virtual world, looking into your classroom. So this is the next aspect of what we're trying to move towards, because inside of this, a virtual classroom becomes a little bit more alive. So we've got some teachers who are really, you can see here, this is a World Cultures High School, lots of information across the top, different units, but still by date. So again, we're seeing this kind of information evolve. And I think between Google Sites, Google Classroom, they're not going away in the future. These are things that can be used post-COVID, post-complete virtual learning in a world that really helps us organize content for both teachers and for kids in a very functional way. Talk about videos. This is probably one of the more important things. And I'm very proud of this district, very proud to be part of this team who we were, willing to go synchronous immediately. Some districts are now trying to figure that out because of the world we're living in. But what we're doing now, instead of trying to get into creating videos and posting, we're just trying to get better at how do we post, where are they located, how's it convenient for students, how are we being creative, where videos may be available before or after to support learning, to support small group learning. So, we're trying to get the feedback from students on what works best for them. And again, I said already, due dates. They like having those due dates. Now, I think we all realize in the world we're in right now, we need flexibility. So we have long conversations in general about making sure we want to make sure students get the information they need, have the dates, but a little bit of flexibility, in a virtual world that is difficult, as we all know. So there's kind of another just snapshot, of what we're trying to get to consistently across. We think kids would really benefit from that. Again, we've gained this information over the course of talking to teachers. Now we did that survey for students. So where we're at in our virtual learning is we are doing everything we can to get better. We have a great framework. We have this does not happen if it wasn't for our teachers. I've had the opportunity in the past few days to be in every building, seeing great things, talking to them, and they are doing incredible work. Kids are present. It's not in-class instruction, but what we've asked our teachers to do, being present in their classrooms, giving it their all. They are doing that. They are, I think the principals would tell you they are performing unbelievably, and they're committed to doing whatever it takes during this difficult time to make instruction work. I think that's it. Questions, thoughts? That's just a quick overview of kind of we're moving that needle to how do we listen to students? How do we listen to teachers to move this forward? They're the ones in the trenches right now, so.
Thank you very much, Dr. Beckhart. I do want to say I've been out in among the buildings and actually done some observations in these virtual classrooms as well. And one of the things I saw happening in the classrooms were the teachers had timers. So they may say, this was a third grade classroom, she would say, I want you to read this passage. And she would set up a timer that they would see on the presentation on their Zoom or on their Google Meet, and it would go down 5 minutes, and they would have time to read, and just like it were in the classroom where you would have a quiet room and they'd be reading and they'd know that you were going to take back in, and that's how she did it. And it really mirrored the classroom in the best possible way when she did that. Kids raised their hands. within their platform. They unmuted, and we had one that wanted to sing to us, and not on mute, but not mute, but that she took care of it behaviorally in a very appropriate way. So it does mirror a classroom in some aspects. Again, we all understand that in-person classes are the best, but unfortunately in this time and with things that are happening now, we have decisions to make, and I'd like the board to take opportunity to talk about those decisions and how they have to come about.
Okay, so to dovetail off what Ricky just said, one of the challenges that we continue to face, not only as board members, but certainly with the school, the administration team, the teachers, everybody, families, and all that, is to how to balance the ebb and flow of regulations and guidelines that get handed down from the Department of Health, the Department of Education, and how we have to make decisions based on that. And also the most important and most critical piece to that is to the consideration for the health, safety, and well-being of everybody concerned. So one of the things that we have in front of us right now is to where we move with our current situation which is 100% virtual learning, and when do we look at an opportunity to move into and past the virtual learning 100% and have an opportunity to get back to either the way we were or some other level of in-person training or in-person education. So we've had a discussion about that. I guess at this point, I'd like to have the voices of some of the other board members that would like to just touch on that part of our discussions and share their thoughts on, the virtual versus in-person learning and where we've kind of evolved as a group. So would anybody like to share in that?
I'm happy to go first.
Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome. Deciding how we're going to proceed. At this point, I believe that I can speak for myself when I say that really with the rate of COVID exposure in the community and the attestation form, I think our hands are tied with how we need to move forward. I do believe that socially and academically children belong in school buildings with teachers who are phenomenal. I appreciate Mr. Bickhart's outreach to the children to see how it's going. I think continuous improvement is important in every sector, but most important in education, because our children are our stakeholders too. And so thank you for that. I do applaud the efforts that we have made as a district. I think the commitment from the superintendent to every staff member, including paraprofessionals and bus drivers, has been fantastic. I do think that we can continually be proactive, though, if we need to go out to a full-time virtual program. I think it's our duty to our children to engage with them every day outside of that academic realm as well. And we have a commitment to make sure that they're safe and they're healthy, and that's also a responsibility of the school district. And so it is difficult for me to say that being out of school for any length of time is good for children, but I do believe that our hands are tied by the state. Having said that, I would like to continue to be a proponent to make sure that every child every day has someone that they're connecting with.
Thank you, Jen. Does anybody else like to share their thoughts on this subject?
I will echo that a little bit. It was a hard decision. Certainly not as a favorite of one of my children to stay virtual. But when I kept thinking what the spread rate is like currently in the county and in the area, and then magnifying that into a school, how do we staff the school? We could say we'd be in school, but if we've got 10 teachers out in Liberty Valley, for example, it becomes an issue. I mean, we just can't, we can teach virtually from home. They can teach virtually from their classroom. We can't put anybody in the classroom to replace the teachers if we're in person. So that was kind of the final straw for me, I think, was just a staffing issue, and that comes back to safety for the kids. We can't have unsupervised classrooms. So that's where I was.
Okay, thanks, Caston. Anybody else?
I think both Jennifer and Caston has said it well. I have nothing to add, but I just want to appreciate Dr. Bickhart's presentation and the fact that you based your decision on questionnaires or approaching the people, as you call them, the ones in the trenches. And I think that's the best thing you did, and I appreciate that, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Tachu.
I just would like to add that going virtual I don't think is any educator's choice. We got into this business because we wanted to be with students. We wanted to be with children. And what we know about it is that being face-to-face gives us the best opportunity to make connections with kids. So the one caution or the one concern I have, although I understand our hands are tied basically by Department of Health and PDE, is that we're being proactive in reaching out. And one thing I know that we've found in a remote setting is that kids who normally wouldn't be on our radar are now on our radar. And so, the phenomenal job that our administrative team has done and that our teachers are doing and that our support staff are doing is great. But we also need to identify that we're making sure we're casting our net farther, that we're making sure that we're doing things proactively to catch those kids who wouldn't normally be on our radar because this has impacted their social and emotional well-being to such a degree. And that's unfortunate that we're having to make a choice between physical health and mental health because both of them are important.
Thank you, Christina. Any other thoughts, you guys, or heard anything? No? Okay. You guys said everything I had in my mind. I just would like to add that as we had these discussions, and they are obviously not easy ones to come to a final kind of view and direction, everybody that shared in that conversation was founded in what's best for the kids and the staff as a whole. And there's a lot of different ways to break that down. But having that said, there's also guidelines and criteria by which we're held to. And there's a lot of things that come with that. So with that said, what we've arrived at right now is to continue with our 100% virtual program up through the week of January 15th. That's January 15th, so Friday. And we'll be looking at opportunity to move in another direction as the things evolve, conditions in the community, guidelines from all the agencies that govern our decision making. But we've committed as a group to move that 100% virtual to the 15th of January. Gives folks time to plan and for us to have at least some semblance of consistency with the roles of the students. Okay. So with that said, we need to move in a direction to have a motion to approve the 100% virtual through the 15th of January.
15th is a Friday.
15th of that Friday. So we carry it through that Friday. We look with the opportunity to make to the next level on that Monday, back in session on that Monday.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Okay, thank you. We'll do a roll call, I think, Terry. Oh, excuse me, a little procedural requirement. I apologize for that. We do need, before we formalize the substance of the motion, we do need to make a motion, since it's not formally in the criteria, to have a motion to add this to the criteria, which would be to move to a 100% virtual program up through January 15th. So do I have a motion to add that to the agenda?
A motion to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Now we can move forward with a roll call for approving 100% virtual.
Well,
Add to the motion.
we have to take,
Okay, sorry.
we have to take the vote to add the motion.
Okay, I'm back.
Slow down.
Okay,
Need more coffee.
okay. Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Gatachu,
Yes.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard, Dr. Uasa,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So next order of business is we will open up the floor to our public comment period. Again, the criteria there is if you care to share a public comment, it needs to be on agenda items only, maximum of 3 minutes. And as you speak, please state your name and your address. So I turn it over first to any folks in the room here with us that would like to make a public comment. I don't see any takers. Thank you. And we'll move to the virtual team. Is there anybody in the virtual format that would like to make a public comment?
Please raise your hand if you would like to make public comment in Zoom. No public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Okay. Okay, so now there's nothing for agenda item 5 tonight. Move to agenda item 6, which is consent agenda items. And on the consent agenda items, we have a recommended action for the board to take action to approve consent agenda items 8.1, 12.1, 13.1, and 13.2 as noted in your agenda. Do I have a motion to approve those consent agenda items?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Christina.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Katachu.
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard, Dr. Uasa,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Thank you. Item 7, there's nothing tonight in item 7. Item number 8, the board will take action to accept the resignation of Justin Viter. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Apologize. Item 8.2. Thank you. We'll get this. The board will take action to approve the following coaches for the 2021 winter season. The stipend, if applicable, will be paid at the end of the season, consistent with the 2020 to 2021 budget. We have Wayne Renz, head girls basketball coach; Walt Patensky, middle school boys basketball coach; Evan Welliver, volunteer wrestling coach; Eric Cease, volunteer wrestling coach; Matt Dunkel, volunteer wrestling coach; Zach Zerby, volunteer wrestling coach; and Michael Cook, volunteer wrestling coach. Do I have a motion to approve item 8.2 for coaches?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Dr. Katachu. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Caston.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard, Dr. Uasa,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Thank you. Item 8. 8.3, the DAC invoice. Do I have a motion to approve payment for the invoice in the amount of $25,000 to the Danville Area Community Center for hosting the Danville Area School District varsity swim and diving team for the 2021 winter swim season as presented?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard, Dr. Uasa,
Abstain.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Okay, then moving forward on our agenda to there's nothing under agenda item 10 tonight. And then agenda item 11, we have in finance a bill for payment. A payment for, bills for payment, for November 13th through November 24th. Do I have a motion to approve said bills for payment?
I make that motion.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Dr. Katachu.
Mr. Reichard. Dr. Uasa.
Yes.
Mrs. Fish.
Yes.
Dr. Katachu.
Yes.
Dr. Gursky.
Abstain.
Mr. Kirsch.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Okay. Item 11.2, educators EAP. Board will take action to approve educators EAP to provide an employee assistance program to all employees as presented. The 3-year contract price is $18.72 per employee per year. Do I have a motion to approve the educators EAP?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Christina.
My second.
Thank you, Dr. Katachu.
Dr. Uasa.
Yes.
Mrs. Fish.
Yes.
Dr. Katachu.
Yes.
Dr. Gursky.
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch.
Yes.
Mr. Reichard. Mr. Huron.
Yes. Okay, item 12.2 for new hire.
Mr.
Board-
Huron, may I make a motion to approve 12.2 through 12.5 as a consent agenda?
Absolutely. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jen.
Are you ready? Mrs. Fish.
Yes.
Dr. Katachu.
Yes.
Dr. Gursky.
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch.
Yes.
Mr. Reichard. Dr. Uasa.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Okay, moving through the next consent items, we're now on item 13.3, consultant agreement. The board will take action to approve the consultant agreement between Danville Head Start and Sandra Button to provide coaching services to the education staff at Danville Head Start at an hourly rate of $35 and the IRS rate for mileage effective January 4th, 2021 through August 31st, 2021 as presented. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Christina.
My second.
Thank you, Dr. Katachu.
Dr. Katachu.
Yes.
Dr. Gursky.
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch.
Yes.
Mr. Reichard. Dr. Uasa.
Yes.
Mrs. Fish.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, we do have an item 13.4, which we added previously with that prior motion. An item 13.4 now becomes the board will take action to approve extending full virtual remote learning through January 15th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Daryl.
Dr. Gursky.
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch.
Yes.
Mr. Reichard. Dr. Uasa.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes.
Mrs. Fish.
Yes.
Dr. Katachu.
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing tonight on item 14, transportation. Item 15, are there board concerns, items, or any other comments at this time for next meeting agenda or anything we've got in front of us? Any thoughts or concerns from anybody on the board? No? Okay. Thank you. Next item is the second public comment period. Again, we open it up for public comments, same criteria, which is 3 minutes. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make a public comment at this time? And Jeff, there's nobody in the room that's raised their hand. So is there anybody virtually?
All right, please raise your hand if you want to comment in Zoom. We have one. Go ahead and unmute yourself and state your name and address, please.
Hello, I'm Anna Marie Bennett, 864 Campbelltown Hill Road in Danville. I just wanted to ask, like, I'm all for the kids in school, being in school, playing sports. I totally understand that's very important to kids and parents. But you just approved the virtual learning till January, and the elementary wrestling and basketball postponed. What about our what about our middle school and high school wrestlers and basketball? Is that just because they are, and don't get me wrong, I'm glad they're still playing and still doing something productive. But is that just because they are older and can socially distance more? But unlike wrestling, you really can't social distance even with a mask on. I'm just concerned about the kids with the sports as well, the older kids as well.
Mr. Johns, would you like to comment on that, please? You gotta come to the mic. Mr. Johns is our Director of Student Activities and Athletics.
Yep, I know one of the considerations and concerns are exactly what you mentioned about some of the younger kids and being able to socially distance. We have almost 60 kids in our elementary basketball program, almost 40 or 50 kids in our elementary wrestling program. We just felt it was better at this time to kind of pause and wait on that till after the holiday break. And as far as the high school and the middle schoolers, yes, they are easier to keep them apart, to keep them socially distanced. Those groups are much smaller. Our basketball team is about 20. Girls basketball is about 15, and our middle school teams are smaller than that. So it is easier to socially distance them. And we look at sheer numbers. And we've also worked with all of the other member schools in the Heartland Conference. We had a superintendent's oversight committee. I don't know if you want to mention something about that, but all the member schools, we agreed to follow the health and safety concerns and do a lot of the things that we've talked about here as a board as well.
What during our superintendent's oversight committee for the PHAC, the Pennsylvania Heartland Athletic Conference, we discussed several things, and we discussed, all the advantages and disadvantages of moving forward. One of the areas that we discussed wholeheartedly was that all masking requirements will be adhered to, that students will be playing with masks on. District by district, we can make decisions as to whether or not we play teams if they choose not to wear masks. In the Danville district, both opponent and our teams will wear masks in our buildings. Also, we talked about having the to relook at everything every week. If there's a game that we feel like that's for some reason we should not be playing, we'll have the option to cancel that game, forfeit that game, or reschedule that game, depending on how the opponent looks at it. So all those things are fluid. Yes, we're moving forward right now, but I can tell you on Friday, we could have a whole different scenario that we're dealing with. So every day is something that we have to reconsider how we do things and try and make everything definitely follow our health and safety plan and keep things as safe as possible for our children.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, are there any other public comments?
All right, we have Melissa Speck. Go ahead and state your name and unmute your microphone and give your address as well.
Melissa Specht, 1336 Bloom Road, Danville. I just want to say thank you to the board for agreeing to keep the kids virtual. I think that it's the best because not everybody has the same understanding and definition of what hygiene is, and not everybody is wearing masks and following CDC guidelines. That's why our numbers are going up, and that's why the hospitals are getting extremely overwhelmed, and the numbers are horrific. But also to the comment that Anna just made, I understand what the district is saying as far as wearing masks and social distancing for the middle and the high schoolers, but I also think that it only takes interaction between two people in order to spread the virus. So I just ask the board to re-examine the middle school and the high school as well. And I think that those sports should be put on hold until things start to calm down too, because one turns into five. Do you know what I mean? Like, it only takes one person to infect how many kids? And like Mr. Johns was saying that there's like 15 girls on the basketball team. Do they travel on the same bus back and forth? Like, are they in close proximity to each other, those 15 girls? It would only take one person to get infected to have to quarantine those 15 girls, thus leading to their families being quarantined. So it's just like you'd have to quarantine these 15 plus their family members, plus whoever their family members were in contact with. So it just multiplies as they interact with more people. So I think that the board should take a look at that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will explain the process of contact tracing, which is what you're talking about, is if we have an individual who is deemed to be positive as COVID, what we do is we trace those individuals they've been in contact with, direct contact, within 6 feet of the person for 15 minutes or more. On the buses, we use the large buses so they can space out on the buses, and that does prevent that. The other thing is when you contact trace, it's only the person who is in direct contact with the person who has been deemed positive for COVID that is quarantined. Other members do not have to quarantine. It's just the people who are in direct contact with the person who is positive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Are there any other public comments?
No more public comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Real quick before we adjourn, I just would like to personally thank again the tremendous efforts that is being put forth by this team in this community, in this school district, much of which doesn't get recognized all the time. But when you roll your sleeves up and take a hard look at all that's involved with making these tough decisions and looking and keeping our health and well-being of our students and our teachers and faculty at the forefront, that's not an easy task. And I commend every one of you and your teams for the outstanding effort and under these monumental circumstances. So thank you. So with that said, move to item 17, which is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.